He woke suddenly in cold and dread. The fire had burned down to smoldering red embers. The air itself seemed frozen, it was so cold. In the corner, the Garen was whinnying and kicking the logs with her hind legs. Gilly sat by the fire, hugging her babe. Sam sat up groggy, his breath puffing pale from his open mouth. The long hall was dark with shadows, black and blacker. The hair on his arms was standing up. "It's nothing," he told himself. "I'm cold. That's all." Then, by the door, one of the shadows moved. A big one. "This is still a dream," Sam prayed. "Oh, make it that I'm still asleep. Make it a nightmare. He's dead. He's dead. I saw him die." "He's come for the babe," Gilly wept. "He smells him. A babe fresh born stinks of life. He's come for the life." The huge dark shape stooped under the lintel into the hall and shambled toward them. In the dim light of the fire, the shadow became small Paul. "Go away," Sam croaked. "We don't want you here." Paul's hands were coal. His face was milk. His eyes shone a bitter blue. Hoarfrost whitened his beard, and on one shoulder hunched a raven, pecking at his cheek, eating the dead white flesh. Sam's bladder let go, and he felt the warmth running down his legs. "Gilly, calm the horse and lead her out. You do that." "You," she started. "I have the knife. The dragonglass dagger." He fumbled it out as he got to his feet. He'd given the first knife to Gren, but thankfully he'd remembered to take Lord Mormont's dagger before fleeing Craster's Keep. He clutched it tight, moving away from the fire, away from Gilly and the babe. "Paul?" He meant to sound brave, but it came out in a squeak. "Small Paul. Do you know me? I'm Sam, Fat Sam, Sam the Scared. You saved me in the woods. You carried me when I couldn't walk another step. No one else could have done that, but you did." Sam backed away, knife in hand, sniveling. "I'm such a coward. Don't hurt us, Paul, please. Why do you want to hurt us?" Gilly scrabbled backward across the hard dirt floor. The wight turned his head to look at her, but Sam shouted, "No!" and he turned back. The raven on his shoulder ripped a strip of flesh from his pale, ruined cheek. Sam held the dagger before him, breathing like a blacksmith's bellows. Across the long hall, Gilly reached the Garen. "Gods, give me courage," Sam prayed. "For once, give me a little courage, just long enough for her to get away." Small Paul moved toward him. Sam backed off until he came up against a rough log wall. He clutched the dagger with both hands to hold it steady. The wight did not seem to fear the dragonglass. Perhaps he did not know what it was. He moved slowly, but Small Paul had never been quick, even when he'd been alive. Behind him, Gilly murmured to calm the Garen and tried to urge it toward the door. But the horse must have caught a whiff of the wight's queer, cold scent. Suddenly she balked, rearing, her hooves lashing at the frosty air. Paul swung toward the sound and seemed to lose all interest in Sam. There was no time to think or pray or be afraid. Samuel Tarley threw himself forward and plunged the dagger down into Small Paul's back. Half turned, the wight never saw him coming. The raven gave a shriek and took to the air. "You're dead!" Sam screamed as he stabbed. "You're dead! You're dead!" He stabbed and screamed again and again, tearing huge rents in Paul's heavy black cloak. Shards of dragonglass flew everywhere as the blade shattered on the iron mail beneath the wool. And of course, I have a dragonglass dagger right here. Sam's wail made a white mist in the black air. He dropped the useless hilt and took a hasty step backwards as Small Paul twisted around. Before he could get out his other knife, the steel knife that every brother carried, the wight's black hands locked beneath his chins. Paul's fingers were so cold they seemed to burn. They burrowed deep into the soft flesh of Sam's throat. "Run, Gilly, run," he wanted to scream, but when he opened his mouth, only a choking sound emerged. His fumbling fingers finally found the dagger, but when he slammed it into the wight's belly, the point skidded off the iron links and the blade went spinning from Sam's hand. Small Paul's fingers tightened inexorably and began to twist. "He's going to rip my head off," Sam thought in despair. His throat felt frozen, his lungs on fire. He punched and pulled at the wight's wrists to no avail. He kicked Paul between the legs, uselessly. The world shrank to 2 blue stars, a terrible crushing pain, and a cold so fierce that his tears froze over his eyes. Sam squirmed and pulled, desperate, and then he lurched forward. Small Paul was big and powerful, but Sam still outweighed him, and the wights were clumsy. He had seen that on the fist. The sudden shift sent Paul staggering back a step, and the living man and the dead one went crashing down together. The impact knocked one hand from Sam's throat, and he was able to suck in a quick breath of air before the icy black fingers returned. The taste of blood filled his mouth. He twisted his neck around, looking for the knife, and saw a dull orange glow. The fire! Only ember and ashes remained, but still. He could not breathe or think. Sam wrenched himself sideways, pulling Paul with him. His arms flailed against the dirt floor, groping, reaching, scattering the ashes until at last they found something hot, a chunk of charred wood, smoldering red and orange within the black. His fingers closed around it, and he smashed it into small Paul's mouth, so hard he felt teeth shatter. Yet even so, the wights' grip did not loosen. Sam's last thoughts were for his mother, who had loved him, and the father he had failed. The long haul was spinning around him when he saw the wisp of smoke rising from between Paul's broken teeth. Then the dead man's face burst into flame, and the hands were gone. Sam sucked in air and rolled feebly away. The white was burning, hoarfrost dripping from his beard, and the flesh beneath blackened. Sam heard the raven shriek, but Paul himself made no sound. When his mouth opened, only flames came out, and his eyes, it's gone. The blue glow is gone. He crept to the door. The air was so cold that it hurt to breathe, but such a fine, sweet hurt. He ducked from the long hall. "Gilly," he called. "Gilly, I killed it! She stood with her back against the weirwood, the boy in her arms. The wights were all around her. There were dozens of them, a score, more. Some had been wildlings once and still wore skins and hides, but more had been his brothers. Sam saw Lark the Sisterman, Softfoot, Riles. The wen on Chet's neck was black, his boils covered with a thin film of ice. And that one looked like Hake, though it was hard to know for certain with half his head missing. They had torn the poor Garen apart and were pulling out her entrails with dripping red hands. Pale steam rose from her belly. Sam made a whimpery sound. "It's not fair." "Fair?" The raven landed on his shoulder. "Fair? Fear?" It flapped its wings and screamed along with Gilly. The wights were almost on her. He heard the dark red leaves of the weirwood rustling, whispering to one another in a tongue he did not know. The starlight itself seemed to stir, and all around them the trees groaned and creaked. Sam Tarley turned the color of curdled milk, and his eyes went wide as plates. Ravens! They were in the weirwood, hundreds of them, thousands, perched on the bone-white branches, peering between the leaves. He saw their beaks open as they screamed, saw them spread their black wings. Shrieking, flapping, they descended on the wights in angry clouds. They swarmed around Chet's face and pecked at his blue eyes. They covered the sisterman like flies. They plucked gobbets from inside Hake's shattered head. There were so many that when Sam looked up, he could not see the moon. "Go!" said the bird on his shoulder. "Go! Go! Go!" Sam ran, puffs of frost exploding from his mouth. All around him, the wights flailed at the black wings and sharp beaks that assailed them, falling in an eerie silence with never a grunt nor cry. But the ravens ignored Sam. He took Gilly by the hand and pulled her away from the weirwood. "We have to go." "But where?" Gilly hurried after him, holding her baby. "They killed our horse. How will we?" "Brother!" The shout cut through the night, through the shrieks of 1,000 ravens. Beneath the trees, a man, muffled head to heels in mottled blacks and grays, sat astride an elk. "Here," the rider called. A hood shadowed his face. "He's wearing blacks." Sam urged Gilly toward him. The elk was huge, a great elk, 10 feet tall at the shoulder, with a rack of antlers near as wide. The creature sank down to his knees and let them mount. "Here," the rider said, reaching down with a gloved hand to pull Gilly up behind him. Then it was Sam's turn. "My thanks," he puffed. Only when he grasped the offered hand did he realize that the rider wore no glove. His hand was black and cold, with fingers hard as stone. And that is the entrance of Coldhands into A Song of Ice and Fire. Definitely an awesome scene. There's mythical astronomy that's going on. There's Sam, with his courage. There's a weirwood sacrifice kind of vibe with Gilly backed up to the weirwood with a baby. And then Coldhands through the shimmering starlight and the ravens that blot out the moon. That's definitely like one of my absolute favorite scenes. So hello, everyone. Welcome to Starry Wisdom Sunday here at Lucifer Means Lightbringer YouTube channel, also known as the Mythical Astronomy of Ice and Fire. Thanks for joining me. Really appreciate it. It means a ton. Feeling good today. Nice to share Sunday with all of you guys. Let me just flip back real quick. Mods, let me know if I missed any super chats while I was reading there, or if anyone wants to. If I miss anything, of course, you can always tag me in the chat there. And 2 ways to support the program, of course: PayPal.me Mythical Astronomy. It's very easy to do. Don't even need a PayPal. One-time donation. This is good for larger donations. I get 100% of the revenue. If you want to do this super chat thing, that's fun. YouTube takes a cut, but if you're doing a small one and it's just to sort of get your question up, that's totally cool. Appreciate that too. So this is a cold hands discussion. I do have some notes. I've got some quotes ready. We're going to do a little, got an outline, got some structure, but we'll definitely be taking any questions about zombies, cold hands. We're going to bring this into Jon Snow, because kind of the big point I want to make about cold hands is that he's a big sort of a precedent for Jon Snow in a lot of ways. So we got to think about Jon when we talk about cold hands, who is not Benjen. And yeah, so there we go. Thank you, Mr. Carl Snark. Carl Snark. I merged both your names there. And hello, Black-Eyed Lily. Mod Mary, I saw you be dropping in and out today, so thanks for coming by. And yeah, thanks everyone. It's good. Thanks everyone for leaving great comments on my Eve video that I put out last week. Eve did nothing wrong. Of course, I'm writing a book. It's in the description of the video below. It's going to be called, what is it called? That's right. Paradise Gained: Sacred Symbolism, Christianity, and Freedom from, or Christianity, Sacred Symbolism, and Freedom from Dogma. That's what it is. Yeah, I haven't looked at it in a few days. Been working on my Jon script. But it's basically a book about symbolism and mythology. It's about religion sort of clashing with modern culture and how we can sort of understand that, and the purpose of sacred myth, and specifically reinterpreting some of the Christian myths that I think have messed people's heads up with the way that they're interpreted. And so I'm really looking forward to the book. It's going to be a nice short little book. Got an Indiegogo campaign is the main thing if you want to support it. All you have to do right now is just give me your email address. It's in the pre-launch phase, so not taking any money yet or anything like that. I'm going to basically keep it taking emails for a couple weeks, and then when I get a little more organized with my buddy Andrea, who's helping me out. Yes, I've got ADD. I'm not good at organizing stuff, so I have a helper to make sure that this all happens, which makes me feel good. All I have to do is write and you know, do the promo and the art and stuff like that. So big thanks to Andrea, and thanks to all my mods here in the chat. So yeah, I won't belabor the point. We're here to talk Ice and Fire today, but I just wanted to say, got a lot of awesome comments on the Eve video, so I really appreciate that. I am going to do a Q&A follow-up to talk more about that and some related topics. Maybe mention a little bit of Lilith. A lot of people asked about Lilith, of course. So we'll do that. But I wanted to give you guys a Song of Ice and Fire stream, since the last one I did was not a Song of Ice and Fire. And I don't want to freak you guys out and make you think that we're just all of a sudden shifting into, what's it called? Bread tube, philosophy tube. I don't know. I'm going to do some of that stuff. But so let's start with, who is Cold Hands? I want to get to what. I think the what is Cold Hands is more interesting. But who is Cold Hands is the first question, because he probably is somebody. Hey, there's Glorious Pitch Puckington. He is greasing up the super chat gears. How much Green Man stuff are we getting into today? Oh, quite a bit. This kind of is a little bit of a Green Zombies live discussion. For those of you who are fans of the Sacred Order of Green Zombies series, one of my older but more popular series. The Green Zombie series is basically all about Jon, Cold Hands, and the Last Hero, and the very idea of Night's Watch, you know, undead Night's Watch Rangers. So yeah, we're gonna be hashing out a lot of that material today for sure. And yeah, Salamander Satan. Yeah, I felt clever about that one. Yeah. So, did Joe Rogan die? You got to be kidding. Somebody said R.I.P. Joe Rogan. That can't be right. Somebody, can I get a confirmation on that? That's too crazy. The guy's young. Maybe he, I won't make any poor joke. Yeah, he's always taking all the health stuff, selling all the, anyways. Yeah, no, he's not dead. Okay, thank you. Yeah, guys, don't do that to me when I'm live streaming. Don't do that, unless maybe I missed the context of the conversation. Anyways, you know who did die, though, is the actor that played Darth Vader. So rest in peace. There you go. Darth Vader, of course, one of the classic villains. Gotta wonder, armored in black armor, his sword burned red in his fist. Is that Darth Vader or Jon Snow in his Azor Ahai dream? So basically what we're going to be doing today, guys, is talking about Coldhands and Jon. But my next video that I've just recorded the audio for and I'm working on editing right now is going to be called "The Others Will Steal Jon's Body," and that's going to be about there's going to be some new ideas essentially about the couple different ways that the others could possibly steal Jon's corpse and do something interesting with it, the motivations for it, and the symbolism behind it. Yeah, not James Earl Jones. Sorry, not the voice. I totally botched that. The actor who played Darth Vader, like in the costume. So sorry. Yes, James Earl Jones. We're not talking about James Earl Jones. Is James Earl Jones alive, or is he? I'm so bad about remembering like celebrities and who's alive and who's not. But I'm talking about the actor that played Darth. We got to see him when he took the mask off at the very end of Return of the Jedi. That guy. He has passed on from this mortal vale of tears, and so we wish his family well and thank him for his contributions. Yes, James Earl Jones, alive. Good to hear. Good to hear. Good to hear. I'm so not up on celebrity culture. I apologize for not knowing. But like I said, next video is going to be about Jon, going to be about the others stealing Jon's body. And so I wanted to go back and talk about zombies and Coldhands and just that whole idea to sort of complement the Jons will be stolen by the others idea. Because the Jon video is going to have some new stuff. So David Sprouse is his name, the actor. Cool. Thanks. There you go. The actor under the mask was Sebastian Shaw. David Prowse. Guys, come on. You got to give me the correct info when I'm up here. I'm seeing more votes for David Prowse. Somebody give me a verification, just so I don't kill people that aren't dead. Don't want to do that. So, start with who is Coldhands. Coldhands obviously is not Benjen. The show merged Coldhands and Benjen, and we all talked about it, and it turned out that inside the editor's notes of the original manuscript of Storm of Swords, the editor asks George, "Is this Benjen?" And he answers no. So it's one of the few theories that we have that's actually confirmed is that Coldhands is not Benjen. So that one we can dispense with. And Benjen has also not been dead long enough, because I think one of the key lines is from this passage right here, and this is where Bran and Mira are entering the Bloodraven cave, and Coldhands is out there fighting off the wights bravely, and Leaf, the child of the forest, is escorting Mira and Jojen and Bran and Hodor into the cave. And so it says, "The first men named us children," the little woman said. "The giants called us Wodak Nagran, the squirrel people, because we were small and quick and fond of trees, but we are no squirrels, no children. Our name in the true tongue means those who sing the song of earth. Before your old tongue was ever spoken, we had sung our songs 10,000 years. Mira said, "You speak the common tongue now. For him, for Bran the boy. I was born in the time of the dragon, and for 200 years I walked the world of men to watch and listen and learn. I might be walking still, but my legs were sore, and my heart was weary, so I turned my feet for home." That's my best Child of the Forest voice. Sorry, guys. You have to deal with it. 200 years, said Mira. The child smiled. "Men, they are the children." "Do you have a name?" asked Bran. "When I am needing one." She waved her torch toward the black crack in the back of the wall of the cave. "Our way is down. You must come with me now." Bran shivered again. "The ranger. He cannot come." "They'll kill him." "No, they killed him long ago. Come now." So the reason why the operative line obviously is the last one. They killed him long ago. Much has been made of that line. What does it mean, right? What is, what's long ago to a child of the forest, right? That is it's like, what is a day to God? Like when you're looking at Genesis and he created the world in 6 days. Well, what is a day to an immortal, deity? Maybe not the same thing as our day. So here we're asking, what is long ago to a child of the forest? And if you look at the longer quote here, right before that line, we get a bunch of stuff about the time scale of the children of the forest. Leaf was there for 200 years in the world of men, just on like a research trip. Field trips, if you remember back to like 5th grade, your field trip lasts, like 6 hours. It gets a little old. 6 hours at the end of the day, all the teachers are tired, kids are back on the bus, going home, like this is a 200 200 year field trip for Leaf. And then they're like, men, they are the children. And they're talking about the giants and the children of the forest, giants giving them a nickname from the Age of Heroes and all this stuff. So I think that George is trying to definitely spell out that long ago means long ago. It's, probably more than a couple hundred years. To me, like 80 years isn't long ago to a child of the forest who just said, I was wandering around the earth for 200 years. So to me, long ago most likely means thousands of years ago. That's my opinion. It's not ironclad, but that is how I think it's a most straightforward way to interpret that. When you're talking to an elder race, an elder being like Leaf there. So now the thing is that the question is, who is Coldhands? Like I said, so the Leaf, the most popular guesses are either one of Bloodraven's. They were called the Raven's Teeth. His honor guard. A bunch of those went to the wall with him. And you have to imagine whenever Bloodraven went out ranging north of the wall and got lost and found his way into the Greenseer cave, fell down the sinkhole or whatever it was, broke his leg, and then the children nursed him back to health with, brains or something. He probably had some of those Raven's Teeth with him. So maybe Coldhands is one of Bloodraven's companions. Coldhands refers to Bloodraven as a friend in a quote that I'm going to read later when they ask him, who's the three-eyed crow? And he says, a friend, a wizard, a Greenseer, call him what you want. And most people notice the wizard in the Greenseer line, but he calls him a friend. So that could be Raven's Teeth. Now, to me, that's only going to be like 50 years ago, right? That Bloodraven got lost 80 years ago, something like that. So to me, that's like, I don't know if that could qualify as long ago. It maybe it could. I mean, you could say, well, the child of the forest is speaking to humans. So maybe long ago in human time because of a translation. So it's not, I think that's flexible enough to be a possibility. One of the Raven's Teeth. However, I definitely favor the idea that, oh, you know what? I missed a super chat. Before I forget it, I was reading when it came through. Just a thank you from 2 Ravens. Quite welcome. Nice avatar. Nice avatar. Hope you guys liked the artwork from today's cover. In fact, here, I'll put it up on the screen. I got the screen sharing ready to go today. Boop. And I think if I full screen this one down here, there we go. Perfect. So this is Didier Graffet. Yeah, I think that's how you would say it. Didiergraffet. So it's Graffet or Graffet. I'm not sure which, but he's done a lot of cool stuff. I think this is possibly from the calendar, if I'm not mistaken. He did that very cool White Walker that I used for a New Knights King cover. So yeah, that's one of my favorite Coldhands artwork. You can see the size of the elk here. It's 10 foot tall at the shoulder and a rack of antlers 10 feet wide. The elk's almost not big enough. You can see if Coldhands got off the elk, the height of the shoulder would be about where Coldhands' head is, which would make it about 6, maybe 7 feet tall at the shoulder. So the elk should actually be even a little bit bigger. The antlers are right. When we say great elk, we're talking about an Irish elk. Those are real things, just like a dire wolf or some of the other cool, like not Bronze Age, but sort of Stone Age flora and fauna that George has brought back. Even those unicorn goats, I think, are a real thing. Somebody can verify that for me, but I want to say they are. In any case, the Irish elk is definitely a real animal. That is what the horns looked like. They look almost like dragon wings. They're giant. It's kind of like moose. Moose have antlers like that, where they have big plates, bony plates with like prongs putting out. But the Irish elk prongs are sharper, and they're fearsome looking. So that's pretty awesome. Let me see. I got some more. I think I can. Yeah, there we go. That's a really good one there. This one is. Oh, I've got to exit the full screen to give you the artist name. 1 second. Apologies. This is Zippo 514. That's a good one. I'll just leave this up while I talk for a second. I'll just sort of work through the different art as we go here. Yeah, you don't need to look at me the whole time. I'm over on the side. That's good enough. They can even give you can I do side by side? There we go. Let's do that. Let's keep the artwork front and center. All right. So in any case, if he's not Raven's Teeth, then we're long ago is now going probably way back. I mean, he could be some random Night's Watch Ranger from 300 years ago or 500 years ago, but there's not been any clues really in the history of the Night's Watch about who Coldhands could be if it's not either an Age of Heroes figure or one of Bloodraven's crew. There's just really nothing else that I can find. Osric Stark, somebody is saying. Okay, so let's see. Let me look up Osric Stark real quick and see if I've just missed something. One of the sharp. Who suggested that one? Jeff Williams. He was chosen as Lord Commander at age 10. Close relative of a king of the north. He served for 60 years. Osric's Hill, named Craster's Keep, may have been named after him. And is this? Oh, this is the stupid TV show wiki. Let me go to the Ice and Fire wiki. There we go. Yeah, so member of House Stark, became Lord Commander of the Night's Watch around 400 years before the conquest. Osric was 10 years old. Yep, that's all correct. So 60 years. Doesn't say anything else, though. Is there any reference? Yeah, there's no reference to how he died or anything like that. So yeah, interesting fellow. Be cool if Coldhands was a Stark. But it's the kind of thing where, like, if that was the answer, in order to have a payoff, George would have needed to set up some sort of fable about it, right? The story of Osric Stark that, like, people talk about. And then it would be like, oh, it was Osric Stark, you know? So without any kind of setup like that, I would put that lower on the list. So that brings us back to the most likely candidates in my mind, which would be Last Hero or Night's King or one of the Last Hero's crew. That would fit, long ago to a Child of the Forest. Now we're talking 8,000 years ago, right? And the thing about Coldhands is that if he's older than a few years, if he's older than 80 years or 50 years, then he might as well be centuries old. We've seen that ice wights up in the north are basically preserved indefinitely, that, as far as we know, that we've seen them in very deteriorated states and they're still fighting. And I'm not even talking about the TV show. We've got lots of descriptions of wights in different states of decomposition. And, summer, for example, like even the hand, when they're severed, it's still wriggling around in Mormont's chamber. And in Dance with Dragons, it's talking about Summer hunting the wights. And it says only when the bones were broken did the thing remember it was dead. So you literally have to break the bones or set them on fire in order to stop them. So Coldhands he's infinity old. We don't know. He could be 8,000 years old. It's possible. And because the wights and the others don't fight with fire. So they basically have no weapon to kill him except for, like, I guess just swarming him and breaking his bones. But Coldhands seems like a good fighter. He's got the help of the Ravens and the Children of the Forest. So the whole point of the Green Zombies series, the big brainwave that started it, was realizing that Coldhands is perfectly suited to range the north. That's the key thing to remember about Coldhands. He doesn't need to eat. He doesn't need to sleep. In fact, I've got a quote about this. Let me go ahead and read this quote. Get a quick drink. Coldhands stood beside the door, a raven on his arm, both staring at the fire. Reflections from the flames glittered off of 4 black eyes. He does not eat, Bran remembered, and he fears the flames. You said no fire, he reminded the ranger. The walls around us hide the light, and dawn is close. We will be on our way soon. What happened to the men, the foes behind us? They will not trouble you. Who were they? Wildlings? Mira turned the meat to cook the other side. Hodor was chewing and swallowing, muttering happily under his breath. I'm eating people. Only Jojen seemed aware of what was happening as Coldhands turned his head to stare at Bran. They were foes. Men of the Night's Watch. You killed them. You and the Ravens. Their faces were all torn and their eyes were gone. Coldhands did not deny it. They were your brothers, I saw. The wolves had ripped their clothes up, but I could still tell. Their cloaks were black, like your hands. Coldhands said nothing. Who are you? Why are your hands black? The ranger studied his hands as if he had never noticed them before. Once the heart has ceased to beat, a man's blood runs down into his extremities, where it thickens and congeals. His voice rattled in his throat, as thin and gaunt as he was. His hands and feet swell up and turn as black as pudding. The rest of him becomes as white as milk. Coldhands' voice is rough. Mira Reed rose, her frog spear in her hand, a chunk of smoking meat still impaled upon its tines. Show us your face. The ranger made no move to obey. He's dead. Bran could taste the bile in his throat. Mira, he's some dead thing. The monsters cannot pass so long as the wall stands, and the men of the Night's Watch stay true. That's what old Nan used to say. He came to us to meet us at the wall, but he could not pass. He sent Sam instead with the wildling girl. Mira's gloved hand tightened around the shaft of her frog spear. Who sent you? Who is this three-eyed crow? A friend. Dreamer, wizard. Call him what you will. The last Greenseer. The long hall's wooden door banged open. Outside, the night wind howled, bleak and black. The trees were full of ravens, screaming. Coldhands did not move. A monster, Bran said. The ranger looked at Bran as if the rest of them did not exist. Your monster, Brandon Stark. Yours? The raven echoed from his shoulder. Outside the door, the ravens in the trees took up the cry, until the night wood echoed the murderer's song of, Yours, yours, yours. Jojen, did you dream this? Mira asked her brother. Who is he? What is he? What do we do now? We go with the ranger, said Jojen. We've come too far to turn back, Mira. We would never make it back to the wall alive. We go with Bran's monster, or we die. So, let me get my other drink. Here we are. Yes, these aren't real antlers, they're fake. It's not my nose, it's a false one. So, what was my point here? So this is Anatomy of Coldhands, right? He's got the black hands, his white skin. He's clearly a cold white. He fears the flame. He doesn't eat. So these are presented as almost like weaknesses or as this horrific realization because Bran's like, oh my God, he's an ice white. He's a dead thing. He's just like the whites that we're fighting, except for doesn't have the blue eyes. And so this is freaking them out. But think about what we're actually being told. This is a skill set that Coldhands has. He doesn't need to eat. He doesn't need to stay warm. He doesn't need shelter. He doesn't need to sleep. So he's basically the perfect dude to wander around the north for hundreds of years, collecting the occasional wandering Greenseer and escorting them to Bloodraven's cave. He might have been doing this for centuries. He might have been the one that brought Bloodraven to the cave. He's the one that brought Bran to the cave. He showed up and saved Sam when he needed to. He's basically been the agent of the Children of the Forest and the agent of Bloodraven for however long he's been alive. So it's an important purpose that he's serving, and his whitedness makes him ideally suited for it. So now you think about Jon Snow. Jon is dead. He's going to be a white. Now we don't know how he's going to be resurrected, whether it's going to be by fire or by ice, or perhaps even with Greenseer magic. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But however he is, even if he's a fire white, he's potentially still cut out to go north and battle the others because, Beric doesn't need to eat or sleep. He isn't worried about the cold. He's literally like got internal fiery blood. So even though he's a fire white and not an ice white, still, even if, a fire white is also ideally suited to go north and to deal with the lands of always winter, because the lands of always winter are inhumane. Like, think about when you see Arctic expeditions and stuff, like they're in vehicles and buildings and like crazy high-tech clothing and stuff. Like, you can't just go around into, like, think about trying to have a sword fight in Antarctica. I guess maybe that's like, Think about being outside in Antarctica and trying to swing an iron sword and like have a fight. Like it's not. And then when the White Walkers come, it's literally like being in the teeth of a gale. Like the winds come, the temperature drops. You can't even think. Like it's paralyzingly cold. It's just not something that humans can deal with. And this is basically the reason why we have zombies in the story. I started off the Green Zombies essay kind of asking the question, like, why are there freaking so many zombies in this story? Like, is this getting ready to turn into The Walking Dead? Are we going to see Jon Snow? Is Lightbringer going to be a baseball bat with like nails in it and stuff? Like, is that? What a terrible show. In any case, actually, I heard it was good the first couple of seasons, but I'm not into like apocalyptic zombie shows, but I digress. So the question is, why so many zombies? The answer is because zombies are ideally suited to take on the others. And so this led me to the idea. I was like, okay, well, if Coldhands is an undead Night's Watch Ranger and Jon Snow is about to be an undead Night's Watch Ranger, and I started thinking about the last hero. He was out there in the cold lands looking for the children of the forest, beset by the others. It was so cold that his sword snapped, which implies that he fought the others and possibly died. And it says that all 12 of the last hero's companions died. Okay. And he was beset by the others, broken sword. Then we get the other side of the last hero story through a song and a different version or whatever. And we find out that the last hero led the Night's Watch against the others to win the War for the Dawn with the blade called Dragonsteel. And the men of the Night's Watch were helped by the Children of the Forest. The Children of the Forest helped organize the Night's Watch, it says. And we also know that the Children of the Forest have been arming the Night's Watch with dragon glass for centuries, which means that, you know, obviously the Children of the Forest are interested in arming the Watch against the others. So that's the picture that we have. We go from last hero with 12 dead companions in the frozen Northlands to all of a sudden he's got a Night's Watch and he's got a new sword and the children have helped him and now he's kicking the other's ass. So what happened in between? Where did he get those Night's Watch heroes? Well, I basically started thinking like, well, what if these last hero companions were actually killed and resurrected? And the last hero had like a dirty dozen Coldhands. He had 12 Coldhandses, and that was the first Night's Watch. And then when I went into looking at the symbolism, it turns out there's a ton of symbolism about the Night's Watch being symbolically dead. They dress in black. They give up the chance of having children. Their former lives are basically dead. Then they go up to the wall and freeze. They're called black shadows, just like the others are white shadows. And of course, a shadow implies a dead thing. Then there's all this fun wordplay with Dolorous Ed talking about, oh, you know, even if we die, they'll have us man in the post. Like still, they'll be like, dying's no excuse, Ed. You know, get back to your post. And it's this. All that stuff. Then there's another line of symbolism about green men and all that Cernunnos, Winter King folklore. George has given so many of the Night's Watch Rangers names that tie into Green Man folklore. The entire point of Green Man folklore is resurrection, specifically being resurrected to sort of defeat the winter and bring the green back to the world. So it's a pretty solid case when I started looking at it that yes, the original Night's Watch Rangers were indeed zombie rangers, just like Coldhands, just like Jon. It's going to be. So the next step of this theory is going a little deeper into what is Coldhands. So let's pause the Coldhands discussion and real quickly dovetail into zombies in general. I do like zombies, and we should talk about zombies. And actually, let me stop and thank a couple of PayPal.me donators. Somebody sent me one a few days ago, and I want to thank that person. I got one from Ernest of 420. Love the content. Love the e-video. You always compare Jon to Coldhands, but Jon will be revived by fire magic. Do you think this will impact his relations with Coldhands and company running on Greenseer magic? So, good question, Ernest. I'm going to put, we're going to get into that. That's the point of talking about the different classes of zombies. We're going to talk about the different ways that Jon could be resurrected. So, we'll get right to that. Good question. Megan with a $10 PayPal. Do you think it's possible Benjen got fed up with Craster sacrificing babies and tried to stop him and Craster killed him? Hey, that's a cool idea. That would be actually a very satisfying if you think about it, like the theories for Benjen are basically that like he got captured by the others or he got killed by the others, more or less. Or maybe maybe the children ground up his brains and fed him to Bloodraven or something. But that's the theory. That would be cool if like Craster actually killed him. There is a little bit of symbolism. Shout out Painkiller Jane, I believe it is, with the sausage symbolism at Craster's. If anytime people are eating human flesh, it's always called pork or sausages, such as when Coldhands serves up the sow to everybody in that scene we just read. So all those sausages, those black sausages that Craster has, some people have speculated that he occasionally kills rangers and that is potentially the source of the meat. So that would be cool. And that's also an answer we could get potentially. We could find something of Benjen's at the ruins of Craster's Keep or something like that. And that would be a really horrific end for Benjen. That would be very horrific. Yeah, no, if they ate Benjen, I mean, that would be messed up. Sweet Sunray, Wiz the Smith. Thank you. Blood sausage theory is Sweet Sunray. Awesome. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. If you can, Wiz, if you want to dig up the link, I can make you a mod real quick and you can drop it in. What do you think? I should Wiz the Smith be a mod? Of course you should. And Wiz, you don't have to feel like you have like any sort of obligations to, do anything with that mod power. It just means that you can drop links in there. So, hey, Raven Salix, Sweet Sunray is the pork sausage cannibalism aficionado. Okay, yeah. So now Painkiller Jane and Sweet Sunray have a lot of really good theories, and I was reading both of them at the same time several years ago in the forum. So I frequently confuse lots of people for other people, but yeah, both good stuff. Right, lots of good stuff. So yeah, if Wiz or Raven, if you can drop the link in, that would be awesome. Give some of these myth heads a little further reading. All right, so thank you for the question, Megan. That's a cool theory. We'll keep your eyes on. So that's Megan's theory. If feel free to claim it on Twitter or wherever. Hit me up on Twitter at @thedragonLML if you want to talk about that some more. I like it. Grant with the 420 says, great stuff. Interesting to have Darth Vader in the discussion today as I thought of Bloodraven as Vader or Sith figure. He's similar in that he serves a higher power. He's a tool and not the boss man, if you will. The higher power is whatever corrupted the weirwood north of the wall. And now that power needs a new tool, and that's why Bran has to get out of the cave. So this is the evil Bloodraven theory, the theory that he's not actually working against the others, but perhaps with them. A variation of that would be Bloodraven is extremely Machiavellian and is sending the others and the wights against Westeros in order to unify them, or something like really twisted like that. That could be possible. I favor the good Bloodraven theory. I like Bloodraven. I want to believe that he is, fighting for the living. But it's possible that he's not. He does sort of symbolize the dragon Greenseer that's penetrated the weirwood net. I see that person originally as being Azor Ahai, and that penetration into the weirwood net being an invasion and a stealing of magic, and essentially something that's it's an abomination. So it is possible that Bloodraven does have a darker layer to him and his use for Bran. But ultimately, my theory about the weirwood net and stuff is that we need to get the human Greenseer consciousness out of the weirwood net because it doesn't belong there. And it's going to go into Bran's head. That is Bran's destiny, is to be the new home for the Greenseer hive mind, essentially being the last Greenseer. That'll make him a god king, kind of, and that's why he'll be king. We talked about that in the King Bran series, so check that out. But that is what I think. That's kind of messed up. You could definitely say, well, Bloodraven and the Greenseers have an intention for Bran that like Bran may not like, and they're not bothering to ask him. They're just kind of pushing him into it because they need him. So it's definitely kind of creepy. Yeah. There was Inglorious Pitch Puckington. Everything wants hot blood because everything evolved on Planetos. Why the wights only die when their bones are cracked open to the cold. I think it's the breaking that's the key as opposed to the temperature, because George talks about the bones remember, right? The bones remember, the bones of the soul. There's a lot of metaphysical stuff with bones in A Song of Ice and Fire. So I think breaking the bones, it's kind of like breaking their deepest essence of who they are. And it kind of makes sense just as a magical technique kind of a thing. Like they got to have a couple weaknesses, right? And if they're dead, Obviously, rending their flesh can't kill them. So, you know, breaking the bones. I mean, it sort of breaks the spell. It's cool. I like it. It's just fantasy world building, essentially. But let me go back. Like I said, I did get a cool PayPal, a very generous one, a couple days ago, and I want to shout out this person. There it is. It's from Denise. Thank you, Denise. Wishing the birds well. Happy Thanksgiving. All that stuff. Say hi to Quinn for me. So a couple of questions. Who is Val? What plot does she advance? Why is Arthur Dane so special? And I love this rant. I'm going to read the whole rant. He enabled Ares to commit atrocity after atrocity, rape, murder, and torture. My dad was a defense intel agent in Vietnam. He used to take 3 guys up 10,000 feet, throw one out, and then interrogate the other 2. He should have gone to The Hague, but they were all soldiers. They knew they could die. Arthur Dane watched much worse on women, children, and civilians. Ares was even sexually aroused by it. That's true. A real hero would have stopped this by any means necessary. Sweet sleep, milk of the poppy, distraction, restraint. Dane was in his mid to late 20s. Kudos to Jamie, age 16. He was a hero. Dane makes me nauseous. Why is he the hero? Why does he deserve Dawn? Pardon my anger, but it's not George-like at all. I have ranted this exact rant before. I think the Kingsguard Knights of King Ares are essentially the epitome of the false white knight, which is obviously a big theme for George, talking about knighthood. And look at Sandor Clegane's commentary. Barristan participates in it. Brienne, Dunk, Jamie, they're all talking about what knighthood really means. And George has made it so that the scruffy rebel outcasts, the Night's Watch brothers, they're the place, even though a lot of them are obviously bad, you know, they're the place where we're going to find the most valiant people, whereas these glorious white knights of the Kingsguard are usually false. Ares' Kingsguard is the worst because they literally enabled it all. And there's a scene Jamie recalls, Gerald Hightower, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, who basically told Jamie, you know, hey, we're not here to protect Rhaella from Ares, because Jamie's like, well, she's the queen, we got to protect her, right? We protect her too. And he's like, well, not from him. So this is the ultimate in like, hear no evil, see no evil. Just put your morals on the side and just be a sword. It's pretty disgusting. If you think about like the Hague or the Nuremberg trials, that's what I was thinking of, you know, in World War II, like the Nazis who just were following orders, like they were guilty too. At a certain point, like just following orders doesn't cover moral abominations. And so that is essentially what we're talking about here with the Kingsguard. Like it doesn't, that doesn't count. Like Denise is right. If any of those Kingsguard had been heroes, they should have done something, or they should have fallen on their sword or quit and said why or something, but they didn't. They enabled it all. So I agree. I think all of those, Gerald Hightower, Arthur Dane, Oswald Wendt, any of those MFers, they're all thoroughly horrible people, in my opinion. They might have not have been deviants themselves, but they did not have moral standards, and they did not live up to their own values of knighthood. And Jamie, now, even though Jamie, think about Jamie is that like his motives maybe weren't the most heroic. You know, Jamie's like a whole ball of narcissism and kind of cynicism and stuff like that. However, he did do the right thing when he killed Ares to save King's Landing. Now, there's no question that act saved thousands of people. And basically, Jamie did the right thing. He broke. He was like, you know what? I'm supposed to obey your orders, but there's a friggin' point at which I'm just not going to let you kill 30,000, 50,000 people because you're about to lose the war. I mean, what kind of a leader does that? Tries to burn down the kingdom around them just because they lost an election? Oh, sorry. And anyways, so there's a certain amount of heroism in what Jamie did. Absolutely. And I think whether or not setting Jamie aside, the point isn't to sort of pass moral judgment on Jamie, but what George is trying to tell us is that there should be a breaking point. There should be a point at which a Kingsguard refuses to follow orders. So I think that's cool. Thanks for the super chat, Denise, and thanks for the comment. Back to Val. I think Val is an awesome symbolic Knights Queen, if nothing else. I think there's a small possibility that she could have a more important plot role. Tiny percent chance she busts out some magic. Wouldn't surprise me. Maybe she has some skin changer or even ice witch type magic, kind of like Melisandre's got the fire witch thing going on. She has all the ice witch symbolism. So, I mean, that's small possibility, but it could be cool. Smitty, you're funny. Let's see here. Getting back to zombies. By the way, guys, if you have a cool Val idea, toss it in. I'm all ears. I want Val to be important. I'm just not sure if she's going to rise beyond the level of sort of plot device. Right now, she's an interesting side character who's mostly like moving the plot around. I do think she could emerge as one of the power players at the wall. In the Winds of Winter preview that I did with Quinn's Ideas called, I think it's called Chaos at the Wall, but I forget. We've changed the titles a bunch. It's the one about the aftermath of Jon's murder. And we're talking about the fact that Jon's just been killed by the mutineers, but there's only a few of those Night Watch mutineers. There's far more wildlings at the wall, and they all just got loyal to Jon. Like Jon was about to lead them against Winterfell and the Boltons, and they were all fired up for it. And then he got killed. So most likely, oh look, speak of the devil, and he shall appear. So it's definitely possible that Val could be one of the people in charge, because the wildlings will probably be in charge. Essentially, there's far more of them than anyone else. So you're going to have Tormund. Is Tormund still at the wall? He hasn't left yet. Yeah, he's still there. So Tormund's going to be a power player. Selyse will not be, in charge. The Night's Watch will probably not be either, unless they're talking about some of the Night's Watch that maybe made connections with Tormund. I'm not sure if there's any of those there, or if all that's left is, mutineers there. But Val doesn't have to be a secret witch or anything to continue to be important. She could simply be moving the politics at the wall. But I would like it if she has a little more to it. In the Night's King Azor Ahai, I think it was Origin of Others, Night's Queen. I forget. It was one of those videos. We did the scene with Jon and Val. It's one of my favorite Night's Queen and King replay scenes. And we're going to go back to it in the Jon video. But the setup for it, if you remember, Jon is waiting for Val to come back from the 2-week trip she went to go and find Tormund and bring the wildlings to the wall. And so when she comes back, she's got Ghost, or Ghost runs up to her, right? And so Jon's like, "Are you trying to steal my wolf?" The thing is, though, that Jon's wolf is named Ghost, and Jon is just north of the wall, looking north, and he comments on how lovely Val is. "Oh, I haven't seen such a lovely sight in so long, blah, 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 blah." So it's just like the Night's King thing, where he was on top of the wall, spied an icy, beautiful woman, and he gave his seed and soul to Night's Queen. And here's Jon giving his ghost to Val in the same sort of setup. And then what they're talking about doing is bringing the wildlings through the wall, and the wildlings symbolize the others when they come through the wall. And that's what we're going to talk about in the video. So let's see here. Jinty M. Hey, Jinty. Given to the trees means weirwood net. Given to the waves, watery halls. Given to the flames, to the fire. Faceless men maintaining balance between death cults. Is that what the Faceless Men are doing? Well, the Faceless Men, they do, I guess you could look at it that way. They do have that sense of balance in the fact that, like, Arya saved 3 people from burning, and so, he's like, "Oh, R'hllor's owed these 3 lives," or whatever. But I think maybe we'll do a House of Black and White episode to try to figure it out. I can only decode their symbolism. Their symbolism is awesome. We in the Winds of Winter preview with Quinn's Ideas called Murder Bank, we went into what the motivations of the bank might be. We ended up speculating that they might be concerned about the others and the events of the Long Night. They certainly do appear to have magical knowledge. They raid all the libraries. They know what's going on at the wall. So it's at Hardhome. They know what's up at Hardhome. So it seems like they might be training Arya intentionally for some sort of purpose having to do with that. But apart from that, I'm mostly into the symbolism of the House of Black and White, which is awesome. Okay, so zombies. Oh, is it Garth time? So it is. Praise Garth. Praise Garth. Let's full screen some art for you. There we go. And I'll go to the next one, which is going to be Coldhands by Elleneth. And let me full screen it. That's a beautiful one. I love this one because it communicates the loneliness of Coldhands, ranging the north for years and years and years, all by his lonesome self with only the elk. And, you know, Jon could end up like this. He could end up the new Coldhands, ranging the north forever. The TV show ending is like a modified version of that. So. By the way, if you want to see a picture of my new piece, it's on Instagram. I'm Lucifer Means Lightbringer on Instagram. It's mostly bird pictures, but occasionally glassware. All right, so praise Garth. Garth be praised. We got to come up with some official like words of exchange here for this ritual, but oh, excuse me. All right, there we go. Kat, did I miss your super chat? I see it now. Okay. Do you think, I'll put it up. Do you think there is symbolism? And thank you for patiently repeating your super chat and not storming out in a huff. I appreciate that. I need that grace from you. So do you think there is symbolism behind Coldhands riding an elk, and a live one for that matter, whereas most of the White Walkers are shown on undead horses? Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Kat. There is indeed a very important ramification of the fact that Coldhands, who is a cold white, is riding a living elk, because we've seen just in that scene that we read that horses and let me get rid of some of this here. There we go. We've seen that animals don't like the smell of the whites. They're creepy, and the horse went crazy when it smelled it, reared and kicked and stuff. So you got to think, if that elk is letting Coldhands ride on his back, well, there might be magic involved in that. And if Coldhands was a skin changer, that would kind of be the answer. And Jon, if you think about it, is a skin changer. So he's going to be a skin changer zombie Night's Watch brother. Coldhands seems a lot like a skin changer, but let's talk about zombies first, and then we'll get to the skin changer Coldhands idea. I volunteer for priestly Garth duty, sir. Well, hit me up on Twitter. We'll come up. We need to come up with words of ritual so that we can all say them together. So like I said, we've got several kinds of whites. Obviously, we got the cold whites. The cold whites are controlled by the others. They might have a small amount of their self left in them, both because the two whites that wake up in Game of Thrones head to Mormont's chambers. They try to kill the Lord Commander. So either the others are controlling them and piloting them towards the Lord Commander's chamber because the others know he's the most important, or that's part of the memory of Othor and Jafer Flowers that's been activated there. Another clue about that, when Varamir Sixskins kills Thistle and Thistle becomes a white, the white looks up at Varamir, who's now in the wolf, the one-eyed wolf, and Varamir thinks, oh, she sees me. Could be poetic, but it could be indicating that some part of Thistle is in the white, looking at Varamir's spirit and like giving him a eat shit and die look. So that's possible. And also I think it'd be the most horrific if the Ice Whites, you know, the spirit inside the dead body has to ride shotgun and watch all the horror that is being committed with their corpse, and their souls can't rest. This to me makes the most sense. I did a video a few weeks ago called Born to Burn the Others. Didn't get quite as much attention as I was hoping it would. It's one of my favorite ones that I've done. It's basically all about the foreshadowing that Daenerys' destiny is to burn the others, and specifically to do so in a way that liberates the whites. There's all these scenes where Dany likes to free slaves, right? The Unsullied are the most famous, but there's a couple other ones where she's burning slave masters and freeing some sort of people in bondage at the same time. And so I have found that as foreshadowing for the idea that Dany's going to use the dragons to burn the others, which we all expect, but that this will have the effect of essentially liberating the whites, allowing their souls to rest, and in doing so, Dany it's basically the culmination of her liberator arc. So to me, the cold whites probably have some remnant of the person inside that's trapped prisoner, has no agency. So when we look at Coldhands, he is a cold white, but he has agency. Like, he is a character. Some people think that he's just a meat sack, that Bloodraven is just animating a wight and making it do stuff. I strongly disagree with that theory. In fact, I think that theory can be dismissed simply because, A, it doesn't, there's no reason for that to even to happen. There's no reason for Bloodraven to do that and then lie to Bran and say, oh, Bloodraven's my friend. Coldhands calls Bloodraven a friend. Coldhands also speaks the old tongue, guys. The old tongue, which First Men haven't spoke in centuries. You know, a few wildlings know it, but they don't even speak it as their main tongue. They don't use it as their main tongue anymore. So, like, the fact that Coldhands speaks the old tongue to the elk when the elk dies and they have to lay it down, that to me is a big clue that Coldhands is from the Age of Heroes / Long Night time frame. But so what we have with Coldhands is somebody that was probably cold whited and then was somehow freed. And I'm going to play on that idea a whole bunch in the Jon video, because I think that's the kind of foreshadowing for Jon. Like, you know, on the show, the explanation for Benjen Coldhands was essentially that he was being turned into a wight, but the Children of the Forest saved him before the transformation was complete, and they sort of caught him in between. I think in the books, you know, it's going to be more like Coldhands was a full cold wight, but then was rescued. Basically, he was set free, and somehow the spirit that was trapped in his body regained control of the thing. And I guess I'm getting into the skin changer stuff, so we put that on hold. Actually, no, let's just dive into it. Screw my outline. So think about this. Jon Snow has died, and the last thing he was thinking about was Ghost. And we know from the Varamir prologue, Skin Changer 101, that when a skin changer dies, they go into the body of their primary animal, and this is called second life. And after a couple weeks or an unspecified amount of time, the human spirit begins to fade and dissolve, kind of merge with the animal spirit. And what we get at the very end of that process is basically an animal with a little shadow of a soul, a shadow of a person on the soul. And Bran can sense the old skin changers inside the ravens that he skin changes. Famously, Orell's eagle hates Jon Snow when Orell is stuck in the eagle because Jon killed him. Varamir takes control of the eagle and tells Jon that he can feel the hate from Orell inside the eagle. So that's what we're talking about here. When Jon dies, he's going to be in the wolf. So, yeah, thanks, Raven. Thanks for the quote. I'll pull that in just a second. And so essentially, what's going to happen is that Jon's spirit is going to be preserved inside the wolf. It's going to start to merge with Ghost. And so what I think is after a few days, they will have merged to the point that it might not be possible to separate the spirits. And that in order to resurrect Jon, we're actually going to have to pull the spirit of both Ghost the wolf and Jon together into Jon's body. I think that's the whole point of naming the wolf Ghost, is because it's going to be Jon's ghost, essentially. The wolf will be. But I think something similar happened with Coldhands, because you see with Beric deteriorates, right? Every time he comes back, he's less and less. And he was raised right after he was killed. Now, Catelyn Stark, the catfish, who I said we were going to talk to today, she was dead for 3 days before she was resurrected. And so she is a less good zombie. Her body's more deteriorated. She does not communicate well. She's like, Beric still like makes plans and goes around and does stuff. Lady Cat is like, I mean, there might be some planning going on, but she's just like a total hate. She just like kills people. That's kind of what she's going for. So there's an indication that, these zombies they're not very good. They're very imperfect, because Beric and Catelyn, they didn't have anything to preserve their spirit. They don't have an animal like Ghost to go and hang out in for a few days after they get killed. Whatever happens to spirits in a Song of Ice and Fire world, when they die, they begin dissolving or whatever that is happening to Yeah, Cat's a pretty hate machine. Nice tie-in to my. So this is a Knights of Knee 9 Inch Nails spoof T-shirt. That's what this is. It says with antlers instead of with teeth at the bottom there. So, knee, we will say knee to you again. We want a shrubbery. One that looks nice and get a 2-level effect, a little path down the middle. I got the cockatoo angry. All right, so where were we? We were Skin Changer zombies. So Catelyn and Beric, they don't have anything. They don't have a soul jar to preserve their spirit. And so they're very incomplete zombies. In fact, I think George has written them a lot like you would see a ghost in most like movies or ghost stories, where the ghost seems to be the leftover part of someone's spirit that's like still obsessed with something on Earth, something that's got to work out, some wrong that needs to be righted or whatever it is. That's kind of the pop culture and actually the classic myth idea of what a ghost is. It's not your whole spirit. It's just a part of it that's sort of trapped in that life that you've just led. So if you believe in reincarnation or whatever, the soul would go on to be reincarnated, but the ghost might be stuck on the earth for a little bit. So that's what Beric and Catelyn act like. They're both obsessed with the thing that they were doing when they died. Beric was defending the Riverlands against the Mountain's men, and that's what he keeps doing. And he's even still serving King Robert and just trying to protect the Riverlands. And that's what he does. And Catelyn died at the murder of her family and watching House Tully and House Stark basically be torn down. And so her whole obsession is killing everyone who killed her family and possibly helping to restore House Stark and Tully, because it seems like the Band of Brothers, the Brotherhood Without Banners rather, is ready to lead an assault on Riverrun and bring that back to the Tullys, which Quinn and I also talked about in our Winds of Winter prediction video about the Brotherhood Without Banners. So another clue that all right. So Jon essentially is going to be a skin changer zombie, and like it would be kind of depressing if Jon came back and was like Beric, right? Like, what would that POV even look like? Maybe we won't get a Jon POV. That's been raised before, the possibility that once someone's undead, they won't get a POV. So we only see Jon from other people's perspective. I kind of doubt that. I think we have to see Jon's spirit cruising around the crypts while he's dead and talking to Lyanna's ghost, strumming Rhaegar's harp or something and explaining RLJ or whatever it is. I really think that is what's going to happen. I think we're going to keep getting Jon POVs. But the point is, we can't get a Jon and Dany romance or even like a connection that's meaningful if Jon's all like messed up and like decomposed and stuff, like barely there. Like, that's not going to work for anything that George has set up with Jon and Dany. Again, whether that's romance, found family, teamwork to beat the others, like there's not going to be good dialogue if Jon's a bad zombie. So what I figured out is that probably Jon will be a better zombie than Beric or the catfish, Lady Cat, because the wolf is going to act like a soul jar and sort of preserve that spirit. It's not getting dissolved. It's not going to the afterlife. The skin changer afterlife is the wolf. So it's all of Jon that's going to be in there. And like I said, it's possible he'll be merged with the wolf and come back. But that's what's going to happen with Jon. We don't know whether he'll be resurrected with ice or fire or what. I suspect it's going to be ice, guys, because when you look at the symbolism, all the symbolism suggests that Jon's body is going to be frozen. Bran sees him at the wall growing cold and hard and losing the memory of warmth. We've got the dream of the ice armor. Jon Snow, the name Snow. I've talked about all the implications of that. Jack Frost and all that stuff. But the thing is, he has the blade burning red in his fist. And Jon's symbolism is always a juxtaposition of ice and fire. So wouldn't it be cool if his body was cold whited? It's laying around at the wall and the others march up to the wall. They steal the body. It's what they've been coming for, what they've been waiting for, the prince that was promised to the others. And Jon rises as a cold white of some kind. But then at some point, Melisandre, Bran, some combination, able to drive the otherness, the blue star I-ness, out of Jon's body, which is, again, probably what happened to Coldhands, cold whited and then somehow set free. And then we're going to put Jon's spirit, we're going to port it over from his wolf back into the now liberated corpse. This is what I think is going to happen. And so then you'd have a frozen body, might even have fiery eyes at that point. Or it could just be that he'll be have a burning sword, but a cold body. That could be a problem, though, because it seems like fire sets the cold wights on fire. So we'll have to see how that works exactly. But I think it's at least possible that Jon will be a zombie that is somehow a combination of ice and fire. But if Jon just ended up like Coldhands, that wouldn't shock me either. So let's go back to the idea, some other evidence that Coldhands is a skin changer. Not only that he was a skin changer, but that he still possesses skin changer magic. So we just saw Bran allude to the idea that the ravens helped him kill the Night's Watch mutineers. We saw the scene where Coldhands rescued Sam. Him and the ravens are working in perfect concert. You know, Coldhands shows up, the ravens show up, they kill the wights. Coldhands rescues Sam, the ravens don't hurt Sam. Very obvious that they're all on the same page. My buddy Raven Salix drops the quote, "Some would fly to the ranger and mutter at him. It seemed to Bran that he understood their quirks and squawks. They are his eyes and ears. They scout for him and whisper to him of dangers ahead and behind." And that, guys, that doesn't make any sense unless Coldhands is a skin changer. Like we're told that the original, the maesters were first taught to send, the first men rather, were first taught to send messages via raven by the children of the forest, and that originally the ravens would repeat the messages aloud. That's a big clue that the skin changing is involved. So like we know that the ancient first men and the children of the forest, they would communicate with ravens. They could inhabit the ravens and make them talk, and they probably would understand their language. The children of the forest understand the animal language. It's strongly implied. And so with Coldhands, again, riding around on a living elk that is not trying to escape him. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to ride an elk, but the whole point of the elk as a symbol is it represents like untamable, wild male virility. It's not something you can throw a saddle on easily. There's a reason why people ride horses and donkeys, not great elk. It's not a tameable animal. Again, let me go to another Coldhands picture here. We find one with a properly horrific elk. Let's see here. That's a pretty good one. It's really dark. Hopefully you guys can see that, but you can see the giant elk. This one is by Omer88. And then let's see here. I'll just whip through a couple of these. This one is by Eric Whelan. Actually, let me blow that one up. I like this one. I like them all, but this is good. Coldhands looks a little undead up here. You can see he's got the blue looking face, and I like the red eyes. The raven sitting on the elk is pretty cool. But point is, like, these are big, dangerous animals. You can't just ride an elk. And like I said, all the animals are repelled by the smell of cold wights, and Coldhands is definitely a cold wight. Summer hates Coldhands' smell, is set off by it, you know. So clearly Coldhands has that same quality, but the elk doesn't care. The elk is fine. So what explains that? Well, it explains that if Coldhands is still a skin changer, and he's able to skin change ravens, he's able to skin change the elk, or at least control the elk. Because if you remember, Varamir Sixskins, he rides a snow bear and a shadow cat. He doesn't like disappear. He doesn't like, his eyes don't bug out. He doesn't go limp. Like we've seen Bran warg into summer. Bran, the Bran body goes asleep, just like in the show. The eyes roll back in the head and he just goes limp. And then his spirit jumps into the wolf and the wolf runs around and does things. Now, when Varamir rides his snow bear, he's still like walking and talking and doing stuff. So there's some quality of the skin changer bond that allows you to tame the animal that you're bonded with, even if you're not actively skin changing it. So basically, that's what we see with Coldhands. He's doing exactly what Varamir does. He's riding a wild, dangerous animal, and it's just obeying him mysteriously. So I think this is very good, strong evidence that, in fact, Coldhands is at least a skin changer, if not an undead Greenseer even. That is also a possibility. Raven Salix, yes. So that to me also makes sense because, again, Jon Snow is going to be an undead skin changer. So bringing Coldhands along 2 books earlier, it just makes sense from a narrative point of view, because what are we doing? We're foreshadowing stuff about Jon. We're showing you this idea of an undead Night's Watch Ranger so you can think about it. Think about all the advantages that Coldhands has in the north. And then you're like, oh yeah, he's going to be an undead skin changer too. And then you flip it back to ancient history and say, oh, well, probably this goes back to the last hero and the original Night's Watch. And like I said, there's a ton of evidence to support that. So let's see here. What was the comment about Sandor? No, I mean, he's not bonded to his horse in a skin changer way. I don't think there's any clues about that. Great symbolism. I mean, the horse is black and his name's Stranger. So Sandor is like, basically, Sandor is an Azor Ahai, like a a transformed, burned Azor Ahai figure. That's what he is. And he's riding the horse of death. So this is a very apocalyptic vision of Azor Ahai, but one that also is occasionally heroic. So I think when you look at Sandor's story or someone like Jaime, you might see the arc where Azor Ahai breaks the moon, causes the damage, but then somehow works his way around to trying to fix the damage, or possibly, the son of Azor Ahai is the one to fix the damage, who borrows that burnt man Azor Ahai symbolism. So Sandor is another character. And by the way, let me just let's talk programming here. So I want to start doing regular live streams again on Sunday every week. It's always been my time, Starry Wisdom Sunday. Other people have tried to take it from me maliciously and failed. I'm happy to report that they do not get anywhere near the views that we get here. They don't have as much fun. They don't wear as many wigs. They don't go as deep as we do. So they don't have the crowd that we do. You guys would be, beautiful audience, #1 fans, all that stuff. So basically, I want to try to stake out the Sundays again, like I've been doing. And but I needed a conceit. I can't keep coming up with new theories every week, and I want to save my theories and stuff for the scripted videos. And so I figured that maybe it would be fun start doing mythical astronomy version of character studies. So that's kind of what we're doing today. Is they also don't smoke as much weed as we do. So the idea of the character studies is that we'll be, characters really are the heart of the story. And I've certainly come a long way as far as my ability to analyze characters from a standard sort of lit analysis point of view. When I started, I didn't know jack squat about that. I didn't go to college, as I've said many times. I don't have an English degree. It would have been fun to get one, but I don't. So when I started doing A Song of Ice and Fire, I was all symbolism and mythology. I have grown into understanding more story writing concepts. So at this point, I feel like I'm in a position to be able to talk about these characters, but also bring in the symbolism and the magic and give a nice overview. So I'm going to be tackling characters that have a lot of magic. So we're going to talk about Bloodraven, Marwyn, Quave, Melisandre, maybe Stoneheart. And what was the one we were just talking about that I said we should do that one too? Gosh, thanks, ADD. And there's a super chat from Enforcer. I'll grab that. We were just talking about a character that we should... Craster, that's another one. Oh, Sandor. Sorry. Yes, Sandor. Jaime is one what we'll do because I've sort of avoided Jaime in my mythical astronomy at various times. I've only done a little bit of Jaime symbolism. A lot of people have asked. People asked for Sam, too, because Sam is cool. Hot Pie, no. Bran, I did a whole series on. I mean, I think the King Bran series is my Bran opus. Theon, yes, was the Smith, absolutely. Should do a Theon one. We could do a Patchface. Yes, I do have a Rhymes and Riddles of Patchface the Fool Halloween stream from a couple years ago where we decoded all the Patchface rhymes, but that's like 3 hours long. So yeah, we should do a Patchface one. But anyways, that's the idea. I'm going to be doing some of these character ones on the Sunday stream. So if you like this, good news, more coming, and feel free to, Euron, I think I covered also in my Euron videos. And by the way, I have a little wound in my heart about Euron 2, guys. I really do. I hate to keep complaining, but the Euron 2 video is one of the favorite videos that I've done and has some of the best symbolism, and it just totally flopped compared to my other videos. Everything else did better than it. I have no idea why. It's the one that says Night's King Crow's Eye. But yeah, guys, if you like Euron, make sure at least you've seen those 2 videos. I did King of the Apocalypse, Euron King of the Apocalypse, and Night's King Crow's Eye. So a lot of my best symbolic analysis in there. Check that out if you missed it. See, I think it might have been the YouTube subscriber thing. Like they switched something where if you were subscribed to channels, they stopped notifying you, and you have to click the subscription bell and then click all notifications in order to get the notifications. So I think it might have been partially due to that. But in any case, it didn't flop too bad. It just got like half the views as like a lot of my other videos. So I just was kind of like wondering why. I was like, what? I worked so hard on it, and you know how it is. You never know what's gonna do well. I am of course grateful for all the success on the overall, and very pleased with the direction of the channel. We just got over 30K, all that stuff. But thanks for allowing me to whine a little bit. In any case, this is what we're going to be doing on Sundays. Occasionally, I might do something different if I need to do a live stream based on a certain topic. But feel free to suggest. Oh yeah, we should do Fagon. Yes, definitely, we should do a Fagon episode. That'd be cool. Dolorous Ed. Actually, Dolorous Ed, even though he's a minor character, he speaks a lot of truth. So if you line up all the wit and wisdom of Dolorous Ed, you'd have a lot of jokes, and you'd also have some big clues. Like he's the one that talks about the Night's Watch, right? Like, oh, if he dines no excuse, they'll tell you to get back to your post. That's what they're going to tell Jon. He says it to Jon too. So let's talk about the possibility of Greenseer resurrection. I just mentioned a minute ago that we want Jon to be a better zombie than the Catfish or the Scarecrow Knight Beric Dondarrion. And just the fact that he's a skin changer and has the wolf to preserve his body could be enough to make him a better zombie. But there is that funny line when Bran sees his father in one of his weirwood paste dreams, and he comes back from the dream and tells the Child of the Forest, Leaf, he's like, oh, he's there, he's alive, he's not dead. And Leaf says something super weird. She says, do not attempt to call him back from death. And it's like, Bran wasn't talking about trying to raise him from the dead. Bran was just saying that he saw him alive in the vision. And then the Children of the Forest just kind of blurts out, oh yeah, don't try to raise the dead. That's really bad. And the thing is, if it were impossible for Bran to raise the dead, there would be no point in giving that warning, would there? So the very fact that he gave that warning, or that she, I think it's a she, I guess we can call the Children of the Forest female. Hey, Elisa Patience, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. Is that obviously that means skin changers either can raise the dead or they can do something really bad by trying to. I also think this is a clue that the others and the force that animates the wights is a mutated version of the skin changer bond, and that original Night's King was someone in possession of skin changer powers. That's original Azor Ahai stealing the Greenseer powers, in my opinion, essentially. But setting my own tinfoil aside, many have speculated that, the original Night's King or the Great Other, or whatever it is a Greenseer, or that there's a weirwood magic that powers the others and the wights, some sort of mutated weirwood thing. So I think something along those lines is true. And let's see, what was I saying? And so this could be, so when Leaf says, Greenseer should never try to raise the dead, well, maybe that's part of like what led to the wights, or the mutation of Greenseer magic into this dead, frozen type of others magic or something like that. However, it could be simply foreshadowing that Bran is going to help raise Jon. It's like, oh, don't try to raise Ned from the dead. But that's going to put the seed in Bran's mind, and Jon is dead now. So maybe it won't be just Melisandre that raises Jon. Maybe Bran will help psychically. What if, like, what if Jon's spirit is like wandering around, doesn't know what it's doing, and Bran appears to him in a vision and sort of explains like what he's got to do or helps him get back into his body, something like that. I mean, there's so many possibilities here because George likes his magic to be unpredictable and creepy. And we've seen that Melisandre, when she looks into the flames, can sense the presence of Bloodraven and Bran. And one imagines Bloodraven can probably sense Melisandre. So many, many clues. Forgot to mute the phone. Many clues that there could be an interaction between these different kinds of magic, what appear to be different kinds of magic. There could be a common thread or a common bardo, a common astral plane where they can sort of see each other or affect each other. I think some version of that's bound to be true. So when we talk about Jon's resurrection, it could involve Bran. That's kind of what I'm saying here. And it's possible that if Bran's involved, doing the actual resurrection, or maybe that Jon could be a better zombie. Maybe a Greenseer can raise somebody more back from the dead and restore their vital processes so that Jon can, get a boner. So for lack of a better word, it's a big question. I mean, I hate to be silly about it, but like, Jon and Dany can't have much of a romance if Jon is so dead that they can't even physically love, or that Jon's body is so cold that you can't touch it. So I do think there's a possibility that George wants Jon and Dany to be able to have some level of romance or a human-like connection. And so it could be that if George needs Jon to be a better zombie and to have vital processes, that it's the Greenseer magic that could enable that. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Those of you who are a fan of Jon Boner. So there we go. And let's see here. What's next? I'll go ahead and pop into the email inbox. Yep. Connor has sent a donation. Thank you, Connor. Discovered you from your collab with Indie Geek. That's cool. Oh yeah, we've done some good stuff. Fantastic videos, man. Keep up the great work. Top-notch political takes on Twitter. Oh yes. So yeah, I've if you want more LML, go to Twitter for the politics and sort of philosophy. On Instagram is where you'll find bird pictures and occasional bass videos. Also do put bass videos up there. And right on the YouTube channel, we keep it Song, Vice, and Fire. So there you go. So if okay, so going back to Greenseer resurrection, it's possible that this is how you get Coldhands. So Coldhands, like I said, most likely explanation for Coldhands, thank you, Anya, is that he was possessed by the others for a time and then somehow liberated from the control of the others. The only other way he could be a cold wight is if there were like a Stark ice wizard that's kind of like Melisandre, because Melisandre, well, not Mel, but potentially Mel, we think she can raise the dead because we've seen Thoros raise the dead with the fiery kiss of R'hllor. And we've seen Beric did it to Cat. So we've seen that fire can resurrect somebody. So maybe an ancient Stark could use ice magic in the same way that Mel uses fire magic. And that's how Coldhands became a cold wight. But I think it's far more likely that Coldhands was possessed and then freed. Now, it could be that, like I said, Greenseer magic is the thing that can depossess a wight. I think it's either that or some sort of magical fire. But so I got an itchy mustache today. I just trimmed it up. Excuse me. Black Unicorn Productions. Hey, dude, thanks for the content. Quite welcome. Really helped me get through the trauma caused from the show. It's gotten me more into reading overall. Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, the show's the bad taste from the show. I've long washed it out of my mouth for now. I feel great about it. And specifically, you can check out my King Brand series, my Who is the Real Daenerys Targaryen series, which is my effort to set the record straight on who Dany is and why she could never become Dragon Hitler in the books. And I also did End of Ice and Fire 4, Battle of Winterfell, which talks about the clues that there will be an others White Walker versus the Starks at Winterfell battle, but it'll be much different. And it also talks about the connections between the Starks and the others, which actually complements what we're talking about here as well. So End of Ice and Fire 4, Battle of Winterfell. If you guys, any of you haven't watched that, I could have named that, you know, the Weirwood Origins of the Others or something like that. So thank you, Black Unicorn Productions. And Inglorious Pitch is back. Heat is magic. Radiation is fire. Conduction is green. Convection is water. Science can't always explain, but magical science can. Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're getting at, but I do think, well, probably you're talking about what I like to talk about as far as the magic in A Song of Ice and Fire being cobbled from the elements. George is a fan of taking the forces of nature and just sort of sprinkling, you know, magic pixie dust on them, and then, you know, personifying them. Like I always talk about dragon glass. It's obsidian is literally cooled magma. It literally is frozen fire. This at one time was a piece of molten magma that was cooled under just the right circumstances and then flint napped by a fella down on the wharf in San Francisco, Fisherman's Wharf, and then we have a dragon glass knife. So George, you know, sees it as having the magical power of fire because it literally is frozen fire. And then we have water priests and we have Melisandre. So a lot of the magic is based in the elements, absolutely. And even blood magic is kind of elemental when you think about blood as representing essentially the vital force of a person or an animal. QQ. Yes, we're not fans of Dragon Hitler around here. That's the fastest way to get banned from my channels. Be like, yeah, huh, dude, Danny is so gonna go mad, bro. Like, yeah, that's a quick ticket out of this chat. But you guys have been great. We got 500 people here today, and everyone is behaving themselves. Mwah. I love you guys. It's great. Bloodraven seems to skin change the Raven despite others being unable to. Maybe Bloodraven took an old Night's Watch oath like Sam at the Old Gate, and that could make the difference. Hint to the OG Night's Watch zombie magic could work at the wall. So, Jinty, thanks for reminding me. I skipped over this point. We see two different ways that the Black Brothers swear their Night's Watch oaths. We see that the ones who worship the Seven, which is most people in Westeros, they say their oaths in the Sept, to the Septon, who has lots of ice priest symbolism about him, by the way, for what it's worth. But everyone who worships the First Men, like someone of House Stark, like Jon Snow, we saw that what they do is they go north of the wall to the Weirwood Grove of Nine, and they say their oaths to the Weirwood Tree. And this changes the entire context of the Night's Watch oath, because now they're giving their oath to the Greenseers, and they're saying, I will not leave my post. I will be, you know, the light in the darkness. I will guard the realms of men, bloody, 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 bloody. Because remember, we're told that the children of the forest organized the first men of the Night's Watch and that they helped the last hero. That's the same thing, basically. So it makes sense that the first Night's Watchmen, who would have all worshipped the first men, because remember, the faith of the Seven only came to Westeros with the Andals and then gradually spread out over a couple thousand years. So back in the day of the original Night's Watch and for many centuries after, we only would have had first men, Night's Watchmen, swearing their oaths to the Greenseers. And that makes sense because the children of the forest organized the Watch. So you can see the Watch and the Greenseers are like this. They are two sides of the same coin, or at least the Watch is powered and they are essentially doing the work of the children by protecting the realms of men. So that's important to consider because it makes sense with the Green Zombies theory. So if the first Night's Watchmen were dead and then resurrected, well, that could probably happen in front of a Weirwood tree, especially if it was Greenseers that did the resurrecting. Because again, the last hero was alone. His friends died. He was alone, and then the children helped him. So you picture these child of the forest Greenseers coming out of the woods and potentially raising the dead companions to make a fighting force that can fight the others. Could have happened on the Isle of Faces. That's my favorite clue. even though that's far away from the north. Don't ask me how that works. Or it could have been somewhere in the north, could have been at Winterfell, could have been in the Weirwood Grove of Nine. But I do think that the original Night's Watch zombies were created in front of weirwoods by Greenseers in some capacity. And so that is essentially, and you see that spelled out too. When Jon goes and takes the oath, he kneels as a boy and rises as a man. And there's the whole let the boy die and let the man be born. So there's very strong resurrection language. And the person guiding Jon in his oaths at the Weirwood Tree is Bowen Marsh, who is the person that kills Jon. So even though the scenes are separated in time, you sort of put them together, you get Bowen Marsh killing Jon and then telling Jon to rise and give his oaths to the Greenseer, as if Jon's just been sacrificed and then raised from the dead. So I go into that also in the Sacred Order of Green Zombies in more detail. But there's a ton of evidence that this is all of a piece, that the original Night's Watchmen were raised from the dead. This something had to do with the Children of the Forest and the Greenseers. And, oh, hey, Quinn, look, there's a super chat that says, give Quinn my love when you get the chance, from Black Unicorn Productions. So you have to come and show him your hat.
What was that, guys?
Black Unicorn
was I summoned?
Was
I summoned?
Yeah, I've just been giving money on your behalf, man.
Hey, guys. Hello, Black Unicorn Productions. Thanks for the money on my behalf. Hey, guys. I hope you guys have been enjoying your what was I about to say? Coldhands. I almost said COVID. Your Coldhands zombie talk. Coldhands is one of my favorite characters.
And wait, I'm trying to do this.
So interesting.
There we go.
Lots of theories about this guy.
Tell them what you've been doing, though. You got a couple cool things brewing.
Yeah, well, Ultimate Guide to Chapter House Doom, December 18th, and then some other things that I'm not quite ready to talk about or announce, and of course, Tadia always. And then maybe even some more Song of Ice and Fire stuff coming in the future. Who knows? But right now, I got to go get food. So peace out, guys.
Peace. Thanks, Quinn. In case you missed it, Quinn reviewed Star Wars recently on his channel. So if you want the Dune fans' take on Star Wars video, that is on Quinn's channel. So there you go. Thanks, guys. That's cool. Spreading the bro love. Yeah. Quinn actually did a trailer for his Chapter House Dune video, because his Dune review, his Dune guide videos are like an hour and a half. So he did a trailer for his own video, and he spoofed the actual Dune trailer. It's on Twitter. It's funny. So I retweeted it. You can at the Dragon LML, you can find it. So yeah, he just watched Star Wars for the first time. He just avoided it forever. So it's literally like a fresh eyes on Star Wars from a sci-fi fan. Pretty interesting. So, all right. So let's see. What do we have left on the Cold? And no, we're not a couple. We're roommates. Thanks for asking. Quinn's a handsome man, but no. Friends and roommates. You don't have to ship everybody, guys. Not everybody has to be shipped. Not that I care, but you guys like my wildfire? I got my little wildfire jar right there on the desk as well. I like it. I think it's funny. So let's see here. Like I said, what is left to talk about with Coldhands? Narrative purpose of Coldhands, like I said, is, I think, foreshadowing for Jon in several ways, showing us about undead rangers, showing us potentially Jon at the end of the story. You know, because think about it. Jon's going to be undead. He's going to serve his purpose. He's going to fight the others. He's going to do these things. You know, but he's still going to be a zombie. So you think about Frodo, right? Lord of the Rings. Frodo had that wound from the Morgul blade from Weathertop. And even though he was able to do all this great stuff, even at the end of the story, it was still like corrupting him and hurting him and stuff. And he was no longer fit to be in the realm of men. And so they brought him to the Blessed Isles of the Elves in order to heal him or give him a place where he could live or whatever. So a twisted, messed up version of that would be Jon essentially, you know, even after he saves the day, he's still undead. And so he can't just go back and be Lord Stark or something. He's a zombie, and he's not, you know, he's always been kind of brooding, and, you know, doesn't get along with people that well. And so you can sort of see the sad fate if Jon ends up wandering the north as a new Coldhands, waiting for the next threat to come around. It would also work to suggest the idea that it's not really over and that maybe the others could rise again, or some new evil or something like that. So I could definitely see Jon's last, you know, riding off into the sunset being like a new Coldhands, like that lonely picture that we were showing a minute ago. And let me actually, I've got one or two more Coldhands pictures since we're getting near the end here. This is a cool one. This one's from a Kazagat. I use a lot of his art. It's a slightly, it's not full realism. It's a little bit like, not cartoonish, but a little stylistic. I like a lot of the stuff that he does. Really cool Martel artwork. We used a lot of the Martel artwork from a Kazagat. So there you go. There's Coldhands. That's the one where he's like, brother, just pointing at Sam. That's the scene that I picture on that one. And then, oh yeah, this is another lonely Coldhands picture. This is a classic one. It's been on a bunch of video covers. This is from Eva Maria Toker. And I like that one. It's extra creepy coming down the tree lane there. So I will just, by the way, let me throw out, last request for questions, super chats, comments, anything else you want to hear about zombies, Coldhands, or Jon Snow. Once again, the next video I got will be The Others Will Steal Jon's Body. It will be dealing with all the bad things that the others might be planning to do with Jon's body and the foreshadowing that points towards that. So hope you'll enjoy that. Got about 10 minutes left here. I'm going back over to paypal.me land to check. Oh, we've got money. Thanks, PayPal. One from June. Thanks for your fascinating insights. I love all your work. Oh, you're quite welcome. I love my work too. Having lots of fun. And the whole thing about the book that I'm writing is basically the short version of it is that comparative mythology can cure you from a lot of the bad effects of religious fundamentalism. When you can see your own religion in a context with other religions of the world, you can see the similarities and differences. You realize that everyone has their own version of a lot of the same stories, and that it's a little crazy to think that only this one, version of a religion or this one sect or whatever, that's the only way to heaven, and everybody else is going to hell, which is how I was raised. Some of you guys might have been raised. So to me, comparative myth and comparative mythology, comparative religion really, really help develop that good perspective. It helps you put your religious upbringing in context. So I've learned all that from A Song of Ice and Fire, really. I mean, not just from A Song of Ice and Fire, but basically from researching everything in A Song of Ice and Fire. So the book that I'm writing, even though it's not A Song of Ice and Fire, it's a culmination of everything that I've learned and how it's shaped me personally over the last 6 years. So yeah, that's kind of the heart behind it here. Enforcer Max. I missed your question. Oh shit. It's going to be too far back for me to find. Would you mind repeating it for me? And I will answer it right now. Or was that a PayPal one? Yeah, it's probably one I said I would circle back to. And then I might have talked about it, but didn't specifically. Yeah, so just repeat it, Enforcer Max, and we'll get it right now. And yes, I'm absolutely besotted with Danny. I love Danny. If someone wanted to catfish me, they would pretend to be a Daenerys-like person. That's what they would do, right? I'd go for it. I'd be like, yeah, beautiful blonde princess, dragon lady. Yeah, I'm smitten. I admit it. Although I'm thinking about adult Danny. Obviously, Emilia Clarke is like 30 or something like that. So when you watch Danny on the show, you don't feel like you're crushing on a 15-year-old. Obviously, that's a little, But the character that she represents is awesome. I've actually talked a lot about, playfulness aside, Danny to me epitomizes empathy and the real heroic ideals of A Song of Ice and Fire, in the sense that she's always putting her life on the line for others, always thinking about the responsibility that the power brings more than anybody else really that has power. Jon Snow being a close second. And so I think those are the things that's why I like Jon and Dana the best, is their values. I just really relate to them. And I feel like, they do the things that I would try to do. Well, she was 13 when the book started. She's like 16 now or something like that. But the point is, none of us think about her that way really because of Emilia Clarke at this point. So I just don't want, my fanboyness of Dana to be taken the wrong way, of course. So She's not real after all. So, yeah. Let's see here. And yeah, no, I'm wrapping up. I just want to keep it at under 2 hours. And I started about an hour and 44 minutes ago. So I have as much as 15 more minutes. Should you guys keep throwing good questions at me. Let me see. Did that question get repeated for me? Comments are coming fast, man. Enforcer Max, I'm waiting for you to repeat your question so that I can answer it. Or you can send it to a mod. Scrolling through. Yeah, I just destroyed the chat with that. Actually, I blame it on Raven Salix, calling me besotted. I do think that Dany and Phagon will have interaction, because I think that's a good place to put heart and conflict kinds of just dialogue. And I like the idea that Dany will have to wrestle with the question of whether or not Phagon is real, and at some point connect him to her vision of the Mummer's dragon. But she might not at first. So, and Tyrion only has doubts about Phagon's authenticity. I don't think Tyrion is sure. So he'll plant doubts in Dany's mind, but she won't know. There's Enforcer. Okay, so can you reconcile your theories in the origin of the weirwoods being by the Night's King and Night's Queen via blood magic, similar to the Shadow Baby, and your theory that the White Walkers are the tree spirits? Yes, I can. I'm eventually working up to try to do that. But essentially, what I've figured out is that it starts with, and I see you, Harrison Grand Williams. Thanks, buddy. I will. With grand power comes grand responsibility. Yeah, it's the lesson of the Garden of Eden story. It's one of them, as I discussed in Eve. Eve did nothing wrong video. So, all right. So first step, Enforcer Max, Azor Ahai invades the Weirwood net, and I think the key is here the understanding that Nissa was a child of the forest, or part child of the forest. She was a magical tree woman. That's what the symbolism suggests, and so probably a child of the forest. And so Azor Ahai killing Nissa, picture that as a powerful blood magic death ritual that's with the goal of Azor Ahai needs to get access to the Weirwood power. He doesn't have it. He's got to break in, just like Waymar sort of breaking into the haunted forest, despite every warning, and then drawing out the others. Essentially, what I think the others are, in part, is a representation of the original spirits of the Weirwood. So you have a weirwood tree. Azor Ahai goes in and basically sets up shop like a parasite, like an invasive parasite. And now he's inside the tree. He's essentially whited the white tree. He's turned it into a meat sack. The tree consciousness has been subsumed, kicked to the corner, or even evicted. And so I think what's essentially happening is that all of the symbolism that Quinn discovered about the others being like icy she, or like being pissed off nature spirits, essentially translates to when Azor Ahai invaded the Weirwoods, the original tree spirits got victimized, they got kicked out, and they went into the creation of the others. And that is why the others are pissed and they want to come kill everyone. Essentially, their home has been taken from them. Now, that's a tree spirit. It's just a spirit. It doesn't have a body. The others have bodies. So that's where the Night's King and Queen magical baby stuff comes in, I think. Because all the Night's Queen characters in Enforcer Max are Weirwood figures. Look at Val, more in a white mask, a few others. Lyanna with her Weirwood Knight, the Night of the Laughing Tree stuff. Night's Queen figures the original Night's Queen may have only existed inside the Weirwood net for all we know. When we talk about Night's King going north of the wall and seeing his woman, that actually might have been like inside the Weirwood net that he saw his woman. But regardless, the way that this comes together is that Night's Queen, some sort of Weirwood connected priest, magical woman that has control over ice magic. And so what we get is a marriage of a tree spirit, and we need an icy body. And so these babies, their life force might be harvested. You picture maybe an icy baby body, and the tree spirit invades the body, and then that is the other. I think it's something like that. because if you look at the shadow babies that Melisandre makes, they disappear right away. They haven't been shadow bound, if you will, to a body. They only are a shadow. And so they dissipate and they're not really substantial. I think the others are a little more permanent, although there are clues that they can be like a mist and maybe dissolve and, you know, incorporate or whatever. But the others, they have bodies, they have hands, they talk like people. They show a lot of traits of people. It's very specific in the Waymar prologue. The ritual way that they fight Waymar, the way they talk and laugh, 5 of them hang back and 1 of them fights. All that stuff, that's all human behavior. And yet they have all this weirwood symbolism. And so that's my answer, is that there's ice golem action here, where you've got a spirit and you've got a body, and they're married together. And another clue about this, if you go to Craster's Keep, there's a scene where the Night's Watch Ranger, Bannon, is dying from the cold, is dying from frostbite after the Fist of the First Men, and he's sitting there freezing. Oh, it's so cold, it's so cold. He's dying, and up in the loft, Gilly is giving birth to baby Monster, who of course is a child that will be given to the others. And so you've got this dying ranger who's freezing. Just think about a last hero companion, or the last hero, freezing to death. Then we have the birth of an other baby right next door at the same time. Then when they burn Bannon's body, it looks like he's rising in the fire, as if to fight off the flames or whatever. They perceive his body as looking like it's waking in the fire. And one thinks of maybe like John climbing off of his own funeral pyre here, or something like that. So to me, there's symbolism here that suggests the killing of the Night's Watch Rangers, sacrifice, the birth of a Night's Queen baby, and then the creation of a zombie Night's Watch Ranger. Because to me, when a Night's Watch Ranger rises from the pyre, that's showing us like an undead ranger being born. So I think that the creation of the others and the creation of the Night's Watch zombies, all this stuff is connected. These are events that are inextricably tied to each other. So so Raven's asking for an episode focusing on the evidence that how the others come from the trees. I am going to do a video about that. I was going to do it already, Ravenous, but I realized that I kind of already did it in the video called End of Ice and Fire 4, Battle of Winterfell. You may not have watched that video, Raven, because it looks like it's commenting on the show primarily, but it's actually what I'm doing is telling the people from the show, essentially, like, that long night that you saw was a joke, and it didn't answer any of the questions about the others that the books have set up, namely that the others have an important connection to weirwoods and to the Starks. The show didn't explain that really, and so I was basically using that as a jumping off point to show them all the weirwood symbolism that the others have. So most of the episode that you want is that one, End of Ice and Fire 4, Battle of Winterfell. So, okay, I will mention it briefly, Cheesecloth, asking about the Wild Hunt, Hearn the Hunter stuff. So that, if you go to the Sacred Order of Green Zombies series, you will find the deep dive on that. And essentially, if you look at House Tarly, House Tarly was founded by Herndon of the Horn and Harlan the Hunter. And that's just a name flip-flop of somebody called Hearn the Hunter, who is a Cernunnos-like figure from English folklore, who essentially, he died, he hung from a tree, kind of like Odin, and then he comes back kind of undead, and he rides, he has, you know, the antler horns, and he leads a dead version of the Wild Hunt, or just the Wild Hunt, guards the forest and stuff. So it's really cool because he's an undead horned man who guards the forest. And that's exactly what Coldhands is. So, oh yes, I do have one last quote I want to read before we close it up here. This is another proof about Coldhands being a green man. George drops all these clues when Bran meets Sam and hears about Coldhands. I've got, looks like, just enough time. Got enough time. I've got 6 minutes. All right. How did you get through the wall? Jojen demanded as Sam struggled to his feet. Does the well lead to an underground river? Foreshadowing. Or is that where you came from? You're not even wet. There's a gate, said Fat Sam. A hidden gate as old as the wall itself. The Black Gate, he called it. The reeds exchanged a look. We'll find this gate at the bottom of the well? You won't. I'll have to take you. Why? Mira demanded. If there's a gate, you won't find it. If you did, it wouldn't open. Not for you. It's the Black Gate. Sam plucked at the faded black wool of his sleeve. Only a man of the Night's Watch can open it, he said. A sworn brother who has said his words. He said, Jojen frowned. This Coldhands? That wasn't his true name, said Gilly, rocking. We only called him that, Sam and me. His hands were cold as ice, but he saved us from the dead men, him and his ravens, and he brought us here on his elk. His elk? Bran said, wonderstruck. His elk? Said Mira, startled. His ravens? Said Jojen. Hodor? Said Hodor. Was he green? Bran wanted to know. Did he have antlers? The fat man was confused. The elk? Coldhands, said Bran impatiently. The green men ride on elks, old Nan used to say. Sometimes they have antlers too. He wasn't a green man. He wore blacks, like a brother of the Watch, but he was as pale as a wight, with hands so cold that at first I was afraid. The wights have blue eyes, though, and they don't have tongues or they've forgotten how to use them. The fat man turned to Jojen. He'll be waiting. We should go. Do you have anything warmer to wear? The Black Gate is cold, and the other side of the wall is even colder. Why didn't he come with you? Mira gestured towards Gilly and the babe. They came with you. Why not him? Why didn't you bring him through this Black Gate too? He can't. Why not? The wall. The wall is more than just ice and stone, he said. There are spells woven into it, old ones and strong. He cannot pass the wall. So the important part is actually the earlier part where basically as soon as Bran hears about him riding on an elk, he's like, was he a green man? Because that's what the green men do. They ride elks. And so this is a big clue that in fact, Coldhands is a kind of green man of some sort. He's either, oh, sorry, Harrison. I was trying to put your super chat up on the screen, but it won't let me. But thank you, Harrison Grand Williams. Oh, I already mentioned that. Okay. Anyways, I'm just always worried about missing the super chats. So the idea is that, the green men either ride on elks or they have antlers like an elk. And of course, that's an allusion to Garth the Green and all that stuff. But that's a big clue that Coldhands is either playing the role of a green man or maybe that he actually was a green man. And there's two ways that could be true. One, the green men could be less weird than we think. They may not look all alien and Children of the Forest like. They could be a lot more humanoid than we think. And maybe Coldhands just lost his antlers. It could be that the green men were actually the green zombies. There were no Cernunnos-like stag boys ever. And when they talked about establishing the sacred order of green zombies to keep watch on the Isle of Faces, that's actually just a mangled version of establishing the green zombie Night's Watch to keep watch and swear their oaths to weirwoods. So I also think the pact between the humans and the Children of the Forest was not thousands of years before the Long Night, but during the Long Night, and that the whole reason why humans started worshiping the weirwoods and stopped hunting the Children of the Forest for the most part was because the Children of the Forest saved their bacon during the Long Night. It's all part of the same thing. And I detailed that one in the video called Timeline Heresies, the Pact and the Hammer of the Waters. And that was a real popular video. So check that one out on those theories. Yes, so... All right, well, that's about time, guys. Coldhands, like I said, undead skin changer, foreshadowing for Jon, and it's a fascinating character, one of my favorites. And I hope he's not done. I hope that we're going to see him help Jon north of the wall, maybe. I don't think the few wights outside of Bloodraven's cave were going to finish him off. So I think we haven't seen the last of Coldhands. And even the TV show Coldhands, Benjen was cool. He had that burning like chain mace thing that was cool. But we're the OG Night's Watch Rangers, green zombies whose oaths keep them on the north side of the wall. That's why their watch doesn't end. Yeah, that's actually a good way of phrasing it. You could definitely look at it that way. The undead ranger has to serve in the north, so maybe that's. I mean, like I said, that's the only reason why you'd want to be undead, is because it would make you the perfect weapon to go north. You're no longer suited to live amongst the living, but you can definitely go amongst the dead. So thank you, everyone. Love you all. Beautiful audience. Thank you for all the PayPals. Thank you for subscribing and clicking the bell and clicking all notifications. Thank you for joining Patreon. And yeah, there it is. Thank you all. See you soon. Oh, and check out my book, Link Indiegogo campaign in the description. Bye-bye.